What the palace never seems to understand is that Prince Harry leaving was never an act of rebellion for attention. It was an act of survival, of protection, and ultimately of love. And yet, years later, the royal family still behaves as though Harry owes them something while refusing to acknowledge what they took from him. Now, as Harry quietly thinks about his children's future and how they might understand both sides of their heritage, the contrast between his intentions and the royal family's behaviour could not be clearer. One side is focused on healing, balance, and children. The other remains obsessed with control, hierarchy, and appearances. Harry and Meghan Markle, a Sussex by name and by choice, built a life in California because the royal family left them no alternative. That fact is often glossed over by commentators who pretend this was about luxury or celebrity. It was not. It was about escaping an institution that consistently failed to protect its own. California is where Harry's family works. It is where his children are safe. It is where they are allowed to exist as human beings rather than royal symbols. And it is deeply telling that the royal family has never once publicly acknowledged that reality with humility or accountability. Instead, silence, deflection, briefings, blame. The royal family likes to project permanence and tradition, but what it truly excels at is avoidance. Avoidance of responsibility. Avoidance of apology. Avoidance of introspection. Harry's departure exposed that weakness in a way no outsider ever could. And the response was not reconciliation, it was punishment. When Harry chose mental health over monarchy, the institution chose pride over compassion. When he chose his wife and children, the palace chose protocol and optics. That choice tells you everything you need to know. Now, as Harry considers how Archie and Lilibet might one day understand Britain, it is important to be clear about one thing. This is not about the royal family reclaiming relevance in his life. It is about Harry reclaiming ownership of his past. Britain is not the monarchy, and the royal family does not own British identity. That distinction is something the palace has always struggled with. It assumes loyalty must be unconditional, and that distance is betrayal. But Harry's life proves otherwise. He can love his homeland while rejecting the institution that harmed him within it. The royal family, meanwhile, continues to behave as though emotional damage is an acceptable cost of maintaining tradition. Harry has never emotionally closed the chapter on Britain, and why should he? His mother is buried there. His childhood memories are there. His sense of humour, his values, and his resilience were forged there. But the royal family has repeatedly confused that emotional connection with submission. And Harry refuses to submit anymore. What the palace fails to grasp is that this refusal is not weakness, it is maturity. It is the result of years of therapy, reflection, and growth. It is the clarity of a man who understands that you do not owe loyalty to systems that dehumanize you. The royal family, by contrast, remains stuck in a cycle of denial. Instead of asking why Harry felt forced to leave, they focused on how it looked. Instead of protecting Meghan the Sussex, they allowed her to be isolated, targeted, and scapegoated. Instead of acknowledging harm, they closed ranks and waited for the storm to pass. That storm never passed. It simply moved to California and became a life. Harry's children are growing up free from the relentless pressure that defined his own childhood, and that is not an accident. It is a direct rejection of the royal family's approach to parenting, privacy, and power. The palace loves to talk about duty. Harry talks about responsibility to his children. Those are not the same thing. Harry wants Archie and Lilibet to understand where he comes from, but not at the cost of their well-being. He wants them to know Britain without being consumed by its most toxic institution. That balance terrifies the royal family because it removes their leverage. The monarchy depends on exclusivity, on the idea that identity flows through them. Harry's life proves that identity can exist independently of crowns and castles. That is why his quiet plans matter so much. They are not loud, they are not announced, they are not staged. They are thoughtful, deliberate, and centred on children who owe nothing to the royal family's image management. The palace, meanwhile, continues to leak narratives that frame Harry as conflicted or lost. But nothing could be further from the truth. Harry is not conflicted, he is resolved. He knows exactly what he is protecting his children from. He lived it. The royal family failed him as a child, failed to protect him from relentless media intrusion, failed to provide emotional support after unimaginable loss, failed to evolve when the world demanded it, and when history repeated itself with Meghan the Sussex, they failed again. That failure is not erased by time, nor is it softened by ceremony. It is embedded in the choices they made and the silence they maintained. Harry's concern that his children might grow up disconnected from part of their heritage is not a contradiction of his exit. It is evidence of his humanity. He understands nuance in a way the royal family never has. They deal in absolutes, obedience or exile, silence or scandal. Harry deals in balance. He wants his children to know Britain without being owned by it, to understand history without inheriting trauma, to meet family without being paraded as symbols of unity. That last point is crucial, because if Archie and Lilibet ever spend time in Britain, it must be on Harry's terms, not the palace's. No staged appearances, no forced optics, no emotional manipulation disguised as tradition. The royal family has a long history of using children as continuity props. Harry refuses to let that cycle continue, and that refusal is precisely why the institution resents him. Meghan the Sussex represents everything the royal family failed to adapt to: independence, voice, and refusal to be diminished. Instead of embracing that evolution, they treated her as a problem to be managed. Harry saw that, and he chose differently. California gave them the space to rebuild without interference. It gave them autonomy the palace never would. And now, from that place of stability, Harry can look at Britain clearly, not through fear, but through intention. The royal family does not know how to operate without fear. Fear of change, fear of losing relevance, fear of accountability. Harry, on the other hand, has already faced his worst fears and survived. That is why this next chapter is so significant. It is not about return, it is about reframing, about proving that life after the monarchy is not exile, but evolution. The palace will continue to pretend that dignity lies in silence. Harry proves that dignity lies in truth. And as his children grow, they will learn that lesson not from palace walls, but from lived example. They will know that their father chose them over an institution that could not love him fully, that he chose safety over spectacle, that he chose wholeness over hollow tradition. The royal family may never understand that choice, but history will, because in the end, institutions endure, but legacies are written by people. And Harry's legacy is not defined by what he left behind, but by what he is building. A family rooted in love, protected from harm, and free to belong without permission. That is something the royal family could never give him, and that is exactly why he walked away.